Hey guys, welcome back to another session of Recessional of the Red Dragons. Last time, the war has actually begun on Mars, particularly Valles Marineris, as they make their way up towards Olympus Mons. Although there were few spiritual guides that guided them, such as Shin and Lin. Meanwhile, special forces made their full-on assault on the Red Dragon Syndicate, including some cool techniques, such as their mega evolutions against their red eye, as well as their status ailments and other tactics, even an electric current which disables minefields. Wonder if that could actually happen. So, they still make their trek towards Olympus Mons toward the enemy base. Alright, chapter chapter 10, the infiltration of the imperial base. At long last, after a couple days of strenuous travel and fighting off more assassins from the Red Dragon Syndicate, special forces have finally made it to the extremely wide foundation of the tallest peak in the galaxy, Olympus Mons. It was so damn high that people in Pokemon got vertigo as they strained their necks up. Some even had a sickening nervous feeling to their stomachs, especially Trudy. Recently, the dragons were becoming slightly tougher while they fought off some machine guns, automatic rifles, and even several all-terrain trucks. But thanks with the help from the Reploids, as well as the Pokemon's and trainers' quick thinking and nimbleness, and even when Zoroark changed into some indestructible ones like Golark or Metagross, they were successful. When they reached the next foot of their journey, they strategized amongst each other. They decided in order to make the climb and the offensive easier, the trainers resorted to fire and ice types, as well as those that are resistant and accustomed to the frigid climate and thin air. Jenny decided that Aurorus was indeed one of them, as were the two Saucebucks, each with their bare glistening antlers that looked like wintry branches of trees. Both Lizzie and Beth would use them for transport and combat, much like the ancient Tundra Pokemon. Blaziken took the front, as did Mary's Vulpix named Amber, Cyndaquil, Arcanine, Volcarona, Talonflame, Ampharos using its Fire Punch, Espeon, who was generating power from the sun through her red gem on her forehead, Zoroark, Lucario, and Castform, as it used its abilities to change the climate into a more tolerant one. Everyone agreed the troops that can't take the cold would be left to stand guard. X also volunteered with his Fire Wave function, while Zero kept a sharp lookout. Still, the breeze at times created a sudden shiver through the organic veterans' bodies. It got a little chilly today. It's those cold winds. Deep raspy alto voice echoed within the frosty air. Trudy looked up, and it was yet another person she hadn't met before. Another one of those former associates to the Red Dragons. She appeared to be an elderly woman with a wrinkled, pale face, squinty eyes, long flowing brown hair, and wearing an amethyst shirt. "Who are you?" Dead's face gave out steam while she exhaled. It was definitely getting more colder by the minute, and this was only the start of the trail. Mind was too occupied with the stranger instead of noticing the pyromancers melting the enormous barrier of ice. She spoke again, her voice being a bit more subtle from smoking too many cigarettes. "My name is Annie. I see you have been occupying my shop for shelter. I wish it and I hadn't been destroyed by those accursed red dragons." "I've heard you help Spike on some occasions. But did you work for the Syndicate?" "Do I really look like a murderer to you, sweet pea? I'm an old bag, so I only sold some ammunition and arms for those asinine agents. My late husband was associated with them. I guess it was just a way to boost my business. Since then, my crib got some notoriety and became part of the black market. It was through my troubled spouse and how I made connections, till I was slaughtered after the fact that young'un finally found Julia." "Julia?" "She's a lost soul, young lady, and I believe you've already found your answer. There may be hope for her and Spike after all. She was about to guess her full name, until, by the way, you're beginning to get a chill yourself. Trudy! Hey! It was Faye, trying to keep the blood flowing through her capillaries. What? Faye! Hey, we're clear. A large chunk was reduced to a puddle that was nearly 2 feet deep and running like a fresh sparkling stream. We gotta keep ourselves moving during the ascent if we're to keep ourselves warm. It is best if we infiltrate before dark. It's a good thing my Reploid soldiers were prepared. Now let's scale this peak and take down that base. Right. Meanwhile, they continued to wait at the devastating convenience shop. It was the same overcast sky as before, but the clouds themselves were dull gray instead of cinnabar. Through the child's prodigy's hand gizmo, they noticed the war was still raging outside. They also noticed the red dragon hunters were advancing toward the enemy's stronghold, with several casualties, of course. Woohoo! We made it! We made it! We climbed the mountain! She began to show off, especially when she did her signature walking handstands. Jet was actually thrilled. That's our children out there! Atta girls! Trudy and Faye. I knew X and Zero could advance through enemy lines. They'd best be careful. There could be more waves of those red dragons. He wasn't so optimistic. Ayn awakened from the chatter and suddenly picked up a scent. He jumped down from the raggedy couch and walked toward the broken window. The air was crisp and it carried some rancid scent that only the dog could pick up, making his fangs grind. Oh, you're sharing the same feelings as I do? That's a first. Ayn looked behind him and was about to charge. Someone broke into the locked front door, shattering the hinges. They noticed the shadow was the elderly Oriental Kim Yokushimo. Everyone grew frantic at the ferocity of his intrusion. Jet immediately stood up with his fists so tight he could almost see bones protruding from his fingers. You! Yes, it is I. I followed your outbursts of sudden ecstasy and heard of your trek toward my summit fort. My colleagues had been informed. They would, in time, swiftly exterminate your puny small army. And there is my loyal pet, Spike. I highly advise you to bring him to me. No promises of sparing your lives, of course. Spike? You don't scare me that easily, Yokushimo. I've worked with the ISSP for several years and dealt with many heartless criminals. I will not be intimidated by the likes of you. The interstellar solar system police is falling as we speak. They might as well, since many of your kind are corrupt and have allegiances with the syndicate. The stubborn retired officer was never backing down. You're going to have to go through me in order to get to him. Despite all the lashing out, Spike was still unconscious, wrapped in a thick wool blanket and another sofa. If this is the only way to retrieve my sworn subject and conquer all of Mars, so be it. He tossed off his massive overcoat, which was as opaque as his diabolical soul. He appeared to be so much leaner, with the elaborate uniform of a maniacal, colorful dragon breathing menacing flames. Wasted not a single second when he charged toward his roadblock to worldly fulfillment. Run! Take Edward! Jet shouted as Kim lunged at him in full force with an incoming armed fist. Both men scrambled as they took Edward and Ayn respectively away. She and the dog let out a yelp at the sudden hard grips as the two men ran upstairs, then barred the supply room door. All Kim wanted was Spike's unconscious vessel, and to take it back to his stronghold near the Olympus Mons summit, then resurrect him again, this time kill off the special forces. He knew his men were falling on account of them, and according to Spike, Trudy and Faye were people he knew. So he decided to take advantage of it, though he had to get through Jet and the others first. He thought the black dog wouldn't be a match on account of his condition, counting his amputated left arm. The unfazed officer went all out toward him, never wanting to miss a blow. Clash was pretty much hand to hand. Each side exchanged some painful hits, mostly to Jet since Kim may be older, but more skilled in physical combat, countering and dodging all the while. There were punches, kicks, lunges, and tackles galore as they both wanted to rip each other's throats. What Kim didn't know was Jet's synthetic arm that didn't seem to hurt him as he used it for making or taking a brutal beating. The men stormed out of a nearby back door, leapt over the balcony, and climbed onto the roof. We should be safe here, for now, but not Spike nor Jet. I usually don't give a rat's ass for the traitor, but I now know how much he means to that son of a bitch. Kim's gonna use him to turn the tides of the war. Exactly. I don't think Jet would hold him off on his own for long. As they crashed through a wooden table, Jet felt the impact and his back ached. Still, Kim kept on pummeling him with everything he had. Just as he was about to have the upper hand, Eddie was getting more scared. Jet! I gotta help him! Ein! No, Edward, it's too dangerous! Mr. Appledale grabbed and loaded a pistol, Jet's Walther P99. Where'd you get that? Jet dropped this. The escalated fight provided me the opportunity to pick it up. But you're not a clear shot. Maybe not, but it's the only way to assist Jet and Spike. Kim has to be stopped no matter what. McIntyre, keep Edward and Ein at bay. All right, I'll... Hey, did you just remember my name? Just stay out. He raced back inside and removed the furniture blocking the door. Slowly he snuck down the small staircases, suspecting Kim would apply dosage of the lethal red-eye, sensing his moves. Still he proceeded, knowing the odds would be truly stacked against him and Jet. Sure enough, he wasn't a clear shot, much like Trudy. His hand was quivering while he had the pistol. Then the quarreling men stayed still while Kim was strangling Jet. His weak hands were futile to keep Kim back while his strength and consciousness were waning as Yokushimo crushed his trachea as hard as a vice. Out of nowhere, unsuspected by the madman, Appledale shot out and hit Kim directly in the forehead. He went down like a ton of crumbling bricks and landed with a thud with his forehead still trickling blood. Appledale ran to Jet and flicked on the safety. His head was swimming and he struggled to take in sharp breaths. His tight windpipe was barely allowing oxygen inside. The cementer grabbed a nearby cushion and slipped it beneath Jet's heavy head, lifted up his chin, opening his windpipe. Jet, you're safe. I shot Kim. Laid his pistol beside him. Guys, it's safe. I shot Kim in the head. McIntyre ran quickly toward his wingman while Ed was clutching Ein against her skinny, nearly petrified body. She definitely needed something for comfort after what she just witnessed. Everyone was shaken up at the sight of the bleeding dead body as well as Jet, especially the kid and the corgi. Then they received a message from X indicating the special forces were finally approaching the enemy base, but then went under attack by more dragons. That was to be expected. However, they stated they'd be out of range once they climb up further and reach the Syndicate's stronghold. Meanwhile, the army endured more enemy fire. Only this time, instead of bullets, there were also some thrown grenades and miniature missiles that packed a punch to the surrounding landscape. Unlike the barren canyon, there was way less room to roam and less cover. It was either descend or fall, or just descend to the next patch of steeper earth. Castform did its best to change the environment, but even still, the battle wasn't turning in their favor. This is like being at Hamburger Hill or something! Mega evolutions were putting up a fight, as were the Reploids. The others weren't so lucky. Firearms proved to be too much heat for the less fortunate infantry. They were kept being blown asunder. Some even got wounded during one assault. The Red Dragons were advancing further down with their heavy artillery. This is Trudy! Do you read me? We're falling back! We're getting hammered! Copy! Get out of there! He focused on his partner. Most of the infantry are falling. We can't hold off the dragons for long. This is surely their turf. Zoroark! While the heavier teammates rushed up to the mountainside, I can see the imperial base just a couple miles up. Can you make it while disguising yourself as an agent? We need to find a way to slip through. Our lines of defenses are dwindling. Zoroark quickly combed to the battlefield. Then he saw a fallen dragon. Memorizing his attire, he shifted into one. Everywhere but his eyes were well hidden. His pointed eyes with the sneering emerald irises were shown. Luckily, he found a pair of dark shades, and immediately put them on. He also strapped on an automatic rifle for safety. Good! Hurry up there! Whatever we need to get, make it fast! Hurry now! He slipped amongst the crowd and raced up the fortress, which was a bit more primitive, but just as tall. In fact, it looked similar to the yellow crane towers located in China. The floors, balconies, and elevators were made of bamboo and exotic wood. Lifts were operated by old-fashioned turbines, and each door slided up upon entrance, while the buttons inside had Asian symbols. Zoroark assumed the topmost button and pressed it, went as high as the car could possibly go. Lousy scrolls. Passing more enemies who barely noticed the illusion, he eventually ran up to the stairways. He wound up at some dark corridor where Trudy saw in her nightmare. The chamber was immersed in very dim red lighting. There was the elaborate throne covered with gold as well as numerous jewels. 2 cots were laid down at the center, and Vicious was on top of one of them. The sight of the deceased assassin even brought chills down the Pokemon's spine. Zoroark! He emerged from behind, relieved that the disguise worked exceptionally well. But even he couldn't believe how disturbing the chamber was. He could have compared this to any of Sigma's sinister layers, even the final weapon he dealt with recently. Since Dr. Wily never equipped Zero with any enhancing performance armor, he eventually followed Zoroark, destroying any red dragon in his path. It was clear that X had the upper hand since Dr. Light developed some adaptable equipment before he was passed on to Dr. King. He was aware he had weak defense, but good offense as well as speed. While at Olympus Mons, Zero observed X using the Frost Shield for defense, the Fire Wave for long range, and the Scorching Uppercut, the Rising Fire, for close combat. Zero used the Ice and Fire Sabers in conjunction with the Dragon Flame Blade and the Ice Fury Slash to fight through. Ah, it's Vicious! Oh, I see, it's just a corpse of him. But what really made them cringe was when they saw the numerous tubes attached, recycling his blood. Zoroark the Ancient covered his mouth with both hands and managed a gulp of swallowing his vial. Zero, however, wasted no time as he drew out his saber and sliced off the narrow tube, spewing his blood everywhere like erratic sprinklers. His partner just turned away before he vomited on the floor. Well, that certainly took care of that accursed epidemic. Further into the shadows, there was another body strapped down in a distant corner. Suddenly, the platform jerked and shifted forward. The slab was attached to a conveyor belt as the woman with long blonde locks crept forward. At the other end, there was a furnace which seemed to be actively burning. Zoroark's nostrils twitched as he couldn't bear the intense odor of what he thought he smelt bodies being turned to ash. Is that Julia? While he looked toward the lifeless woman, he quickly scanned her as she continued to steadily shift forward. Statistics popped up, displaying the hapless female's name, age, birthplace, and a brief bio that indicated she was part of the syndicate. She was one of our enemies! Zero! He was interrupted by Zoroark's plea. All of a sudden, he had some flashbacks. From the time he met Iris at the Maverick Hunter base, to meeting up with her brother, the Colonel, to the rivalry at the Ceremony Hall of Rebel Forces Command Center. She broke up the 2 quarreling Reploids, begging her twin brother to spare Zero since he saved her after the Sky Lagoon crashed. Colonel backed off since he knew Zero to be a friendly rival, but he couldn't prevent him from his duties. Someone must stop Reploforce! Zero! His mind shifted to the moment he fought the Colonel again at the final weapons spaceport and killing him in the process. He then caught up to Iris, who was so devastated from his loss that she betrayed him. She salvaged the control chip from his remains and fusing it with her own programming, causing her to change into a massive winged ride armor. Zero had no choice but to fight her off. He demolished the large precious crystal. It was the exterior core of the power structure. Before he could pull her out, the mechanical monster destructed on itself. Recovering from the devastation, Zero rushed to her side. We should never live together. Only replates exist. Ah! What am I fighting for? Zero! Should we save her? At the last moment, Julia's feet nearly touched the flames, licking her still form. Zero tackled Julia's limp body to the ground, detaching the strands. He then scrambled to his feet and deactivated the burning ledge as he pounded and destroyed the adjacent control panel. Fire was extinguished and the cement slab was still burnt to a cinder. For some reason, the red bot wouldn't stop looking at Julia's dead vessel. To him, it reminded him of Iris from her long locks, even though they weren't brown to her thick ruby lips and fair skin. Zoroark rushed over. Zero! We need to get her out of here! She's the only one who can make Spike whole again and stop his madness. Yes, but there was something the red dragons and Yokushimo used to revive their victims, including Spike. Other than blood, they used some kind of an awakening sequence, a spell of sorts. All we gotta do is find it. They scavenged all over the chamber. They only found drums of all shapes. Zero recalled that Trudy told him of Laughing Bull stating that the new dragons in Yokushimo used his sacred techniques, including resurrecting the dead. Zero came across some sheets of paper. There was a bunch of gibberish and bizarre writings. He was lucky he and X had a built-in translator developed by Light and Wily. Wondered if Wily was also mimicking Light's greatest creation, so he'd be able to best him if they were to clash with one another. Zero understood what its purpose was. Message was so cryptic that he was surprised Yokushimo, a mere human, made this. How his subordinates understood this as well. It was almost as if a hacker's scheme to crack open a person's mind rather than a computer's hard drive. Using the data, he uploaded it all at once into his own internal memory. What if I could use this to revive Julia with this incantation and procedure? We need a blood source, one that could be perfect match and a donor for her. Zoroark! I'm not sure how we could leave here safely, but Julia may be our only hope. Just then his sensors picked up a swarm of red dragons heading up for them. Ravaging footsteps loomed rapidly close. Both Zoroark and Zero clamored to the door. With all their body strength, they barred the door as much as they could. The Maverick Hunter couldn't possibly let Julia's vessel get shot or incinerated, nor themselves. They were indeed trapped like rats with no hopes of escaping or fighting back. They prayed for any reinforcements to come. The claim-up was a scenario I tucked away for the past several years, as was the fight with Kim and Jet. I truly do apologize for overestimating his age. I didn't know until recently he's in his late 30s. I also thought he was older than this, like in his early 50s or 60s. He did look a bit older than everyone else. When he retired from the ISSP, I anticipated he was older. So yeah, I don't mean to be offensive. It was just a misunderstanding. I still like Jet. I realized the chapter was getting too long, so that's why I left a cliffhanger. Alright, wait till you guys see what I have in store for the next session. And thus, this will be the finale of the Recessional of the Red Dragons. See you then.